But I think do not waste what is happening. Codify this, use it as a chance to renew, refresh, recommit on your purpose, on your behaviors. So, and the CMO can be the one who brings that group together.
Yeah.
And people, you hear it as well. People are saying, I'm more in touch with my employees. We're working faster. We're more agile. We're more caring. We're more empathetic. We're less political. And that's how we should be every day. So we need to take these lessons, this rebirth, if you will, and be the leader, be the person within your company who is going to stay very, very close to what's just happened, and make sure that we do not forget it, that we build it into the company, the new company we're trying to recreate together.
A big part of our continuous conversations with CMOs and other growth leaders is about the role of the CMO. Why is CMO tenure so low? What actually encompasses the role of the CMO and what not? How do we align with the C-suite? And the reason why this is such a lively debate is clear, because for a number of years we've seen the reputation declining, the influence receding. But something is changing. Our research confirms that the CMOs who are able to regain influence are the ones that help their organizations drive humanized growth. They create value for all stakeholders. They are able to use their skills and capabilities to tackle societal challenges, like the environmental crisis, like the public health crisis, like inequality. So that is why we've created a video of 30 minutes that contains multiple reflections of some of the world's most seasoned and successful CMOs to help you reflect on your role, take responsibility, and step up to the challenge in front of us. Enjoy.
The role I want you to do is be able to see across Unilever and help me reinvent the way business is done and the way business is done in Unilever. So yes, very much so. Started off just doing a really comprehensive piece of trends work in understanding where the business is going. And one of the things I'd say to everyone who is online as a CMO, as I often used to tease our very good CFO, Graham Pickethley, that his job was to count where the money was going and that it was spent responsibly. But my job was to work out where the money was coming from and how we were going to grow into the future. And I think if you can, as a marketeer, own the outside, bring the outside in and the future forward, right now, with all the uncertainty, being able to show this is where the world's going and this is where we could go is a tremendous relief to your colleagues on the executive. And so we did a big piece of trends work and came up with 20 big trends and 4 mega trends within that. And unsurprisingly, you'll say now, one of them was about sustainable challenges of the environment.
Key advice for me would be to start with the consumers you serve or whoever your constituents are. Start by understanding what they want. What's really interesting is today, 9 out of 10 consumers feel better about a brand if it supports a social or environmental cause. More than half of consumers now, and it's even higher than that, closer to 70+% among millennials and Gen Z. More than half, though, expect brands to take a stand, to make a difference, to do something for good for the environment or for equality. I mean, that really happened in the last year when people, during the pandemic and the racial and social injustice. So start there, and then start to dive into figuring out what you can do on your business that makes the most sense, that can help advance your particular product or service. So, and then like what we have done, largest advertiser, how do we best do that? Well, we can definitely portray people in an accurate way and periodically take a stand against bias, and that makes sense for us. We're a large advertiser. The environmental examples that I provided to you, innovate in such a way that delivers that sustainability. But then you have to make the case for growth, as I was describing. It took some time for us, but making the case that if we have the accurate portrayal, if we do that consistently, it'll help drive our business. And then we proved it over and over again. We proved it with Always Like a Girl, with Always End Period Poverty, with Ole Face Anything, with SK2 Change Destiny, with Ariel Share the Load, with Vic's Touch of Care. When we started proving that you could do, humanized growth, and that business grows, then that started to shine the light. We started to shine the light on those situations, and then people started getting excited about it, and then it became a creative exercise. So you really have to go back to the fundamentals. What do your consumers want? What makes sense for your business? How do you do that in such a way that actually helps grow the brand or the service that you have, and then shine the light on it, and then eventually it starts to become part of the way you do business.
Mark,
that's my advice.
I think the role of the CMO is really to remember that is still the companies and brands get built by stories and products that manifest the story, that are coherent, that address a need or inspire people to use them for their own affirmation, their own needs, functional, and their own definition of who they are. So I think that is at the heart, and for me it's always been. Obviously the world now, it's uber complicated, primarily because of technology. You can't build brands the way we used to. The response that you get is more important than the stimulus that you create. Media is incredibly complicated. If you don't use data, you fall behind because someone else gets better insights, whether it's behavioral insights or psychological insights, whatever, out of the data. So if you don't use it, so it's just got more complicated. So a lot more to learn and more experts to work with. But the heart for me is still, the theory about how brands and businesses are built, and practicing that theory.
Well, I think the CMO can be the catalyst. I think we can't waste what's happening now. No. We have to make explicit what has just happened to our lives, our society, our organization, and decide how we're going to change because of that on a more sustained basis. So I don't hear anyone saying this, but there is no back to normal. This is an experience none of us have gone through. I do think some of the social unrest that's happening is going to have a lasting impact. It feels more serious now, for a multitude of reasons. We can get into that if you want, but politics is part of it, and leadership's part of it. But I think do not waste what is happening. Codify this. Use it as a chance to renew, refresh, recommit on your purpose, on your behaviors. So, and the CMO can be the one who brings that group together.
Yeah.
And people, you hear it as well. People are saying, I'm more in touch with my employees. We're working faster. We're more agile. We're more caring. We're more empathetic. We're less political. And that's how we should be every day. So we need to take these lessons, this rebirth, if you will, and be the leader, be the person within your company who is going to stay very, very close to what's just happened, and make sure that we do not forget it, that we build it into the company, the new company we're trying to recreate together. And the CMO is well positioned to do that because they're in many companies the most external facing person.
Yeah.
Of course, sales is external facing in a bit more of a narrow way, an important way, but a narrow way. The CMO is external facing in an enormous way with all stakeholders. And so I think the CMO is well placed in the organization to lead a cultural change within companies. Of course, working with everyone, HR, everybody else, but I think the CMO, it's a moment in time for us to really shine.
So we're literally, after this conversation, I'm putting the finishing touches to an article that we're writing for Fast Company, and it says the time for Da Vinci leaders to step up is now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to chime in on what you were saying. I believe that through our craft, there are capabilities that marketers bring that the rest of the organization need from them now. And yes, that may not be the traditional marketing area, but you're applying your ability to listen and to go from the words that people may use to describe how they feel to what the true underlying insights are. And really important, you're good at helping as marketers to think through how you move from an insight to a proposition, to a value equation, something that we offer that now the discussion is value for whom? Well, let's think through what the value is for the employee, for our colleagues, for the communities that we sit within. And okay, that might not be your functional area, but it's a capability you bring, as you say, to champion your team along, to say, and that's probably the most important thing, never waste the power of a crisis. People are listening for the first time in many years and really willing to fundamentally shift their strategy. So if you're sitting on the sideline and not applying the capabilities you need, what you bring naturally as a marketer to collaborate with your partners, it's a huge wasted opportunity. I would like to get real in the last 5 minutes and talk a little bit about the role of business, because you skirted by it. We talked about how the marketer can play a larger than usual role in helping the whole company rethink its strategy. Let's talk about the role that business can play, perhaps beyond the role that business has traditionally played in society, given that some other of the levers of traditional power in society are not, or actually negatively influencing that. Well, how do you see the role of business right now?
Oh, well, business is our hope, Mark. It is our hope. This is where change will come from. It's not coming from governments right now. It's not really coming from universities in the way it could. And businesses are stepping up. And to me, this is our hope. And we have to fulfill that as leaders. If we want change in the world that will make this a place that is a good place to live 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, business is going to have to lead that. And we need to be preparing leaders, and part of what you're doing at IRG is that, preparing leaders to manage in a world where we do have to care about the planet, we have to care about society, we have to care about inequality, we have to care about racism. And if we don't do it, it won't be done. You know, a P&G sales leader said to me once when I was a young person, he just put me aside, he said, if it is to be, it's up to me. Sounds like a platitude. But he was making a lesson to me about accountability and leadership. And if it is to be, it's up to me. And I think that's our mantra. And so, and we absolutely need to step up. And I thank you for bringing leaders on this podcast or this into IRG who are living that and who are demonstrating that. And we all need to be doing that. And thankfully, many are. And I firmly believe they will be successful. They will be successful financially, and they will be successful in attracting wonderful talent because they're trying to make this world a better place. That's our role.
This is about multi-stakeholder, and it's about understanding how a business goes together. And absolutely, consumer customer for me is in the center. In fact, at Unilever we used to say our number one priority is our consumer. And then we went on and talked about our retailers and our employees. And he said, and if all those are well satisfied, our shareholders will be well rewarded. Right. And the notion is that shareholders being rewarded because we're doing our job well and the business is vibrant was a sort of a key part of that multi-stakeholder approach. But let me just unpack multi-stakeholder a little bit more, because the big thing about multi-stakeholder approach is really, as a marketer, is not getting caught up that it's just about brands and advertising and consumers. I think as a marketer, it is about owning the growth levers out to all your different audiences and being able to bring that to the board table.
I'll never forget Jim Stengel, who I've worked with a lot over the years and has become a close friend. He used to say, we're talking 15 years ago, if someone came to present a plan and there was no clear brand purpose, he said they were lazy marketers. I'm beginning to feel that if you're driving your brand sales, but you're not also clear on which SDG you're helping promote, helping enable, you're a lazy marketer. Is that, am I going too far, or do you think that that's how we should be thinking?
Amen, brother. You know, right on. I think we have to understand this is the whole idea of the social contract. Businesses, brands are connected to consumers. We want to be in the midst of consumers. We want to build trust. We want to create our brands as forum for community. So if you're going to do that, how do you serve them, right? Our goal is to meet unmet needs. It's to serve others. If we really think about our brand as a service to the consumer that we are in service of, then we must think about what are the needs that they have. One way to frame that is through the UN SDGs. I think they're a great framework. I see more and more companies adopting those. But I challenge you to go even further, which is, you know, are we being lazy by just adopting an SDG? Or do we really mean it? And do we get under the skin of that? So what tangible benefit are we going to drive and derive?
There's been a lot said about the evolution of the CMO title, and it seems to be vogue currently to be a chief growth officer, chief customer officer, what have you. Yes. I actually don't care in any regard. I often, though, as you would expect, sit with marketers and say, tell me about the 5 most important things you're doing right now. Kind of a standard fare, and you might think about how you might answer that question. And shockingly, Mark, there are times where many of the initiatives that are top 5 don't drive growth inherently. And I often find, conversely, with those CMOs that seem to have it all going on, they're focused on doing some things that may enhance the brand, but are very much tied to driving new revenue, new products, what have you.
So it's growing things, and it's, you know, but very much, you know, customers, audiences at the heart, and sort of value creation, and then helping organizations not just understand what customer value means to them, but working out what they can really do that can shift the needle on the dial. That was what was interesting for me about the opportunity at the BBC. That's why I've chosen to focus on some of the things that I'm focusing on. And I think that's what unifies most of those roles is when your role is a customer value creator and a grower of things, a growth driver. I think that's what unites the best of those roles, are the people that are at the heart of the organization. You have a unique perspective of the outside in, but not only that, you often can look inside the organization and work out how to connect the inside with the outside. And I think it's that outside and the inside on the outside that makes these roles, when they're crafted well, or when you can craft them well yourself, so powerful. You are the outside into the organization, but what matters to me is understanding the levers inside the organization that you can unlock to connect them to that growth opportunity. And those are the roles that I think are what organizations need, not just too narrow. If it's too narrow, that you can't be strategically helping the organization unlock the value, I think that's when they become narrow and less impactful.
Well, let me just first start with people complaining about losing relevance. It's a free market. You know, you got to drive your own relevance. And if you're worried about not feeling relevant, you got to change your what you're marketing about yourself and your function, and what you're actually driving for value. You know, you can't expect the world to change around you. You got to first get into the world and then help change it. Now, what does that mean when you get into the marketing function? Well, many times what you hear in the marketing function is a language that is not a language spoken anywhere outside of the marketing function. And therefore, people don't know how to deal with it. And then the second part that you have is organizations that run a lot on analytics and logic and frameworks and engineering, and then very rational. And then you hear somebody show up from an organization that's perceived as more creative, and they speak a language that sounds a little more fluffy. By the way, there's a lot of value in it, but I'm just saying in that conversation.
There's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect. And in the kind of weighted average of an organization, marketing is going to lose out because the majority of functions are not about that. So what I found as a CMO, how to build strong relationships and enable the power of the organization is to first speak a language that is consistent with the language that is spoken already in the organization. And that tends to be more about business. It tends to be more about finance. It tends to be more about kind of functional, rational discussions. And when you can talk to them about in that language, and then first talk to them about how marketing can help achieve the objectives that they're already on, and then deliver and build confidence with that, then you're really in a different position. It is not to say that, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I wanted to just probe a little further there, because you sit on two big industry boards.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take the ANA, the Growth Council of the ANA. And you look around you, and the Growth Council meetings, maybe there's 30, 40 people, and then the pre-ANA days, the CMO days, there's 300 people. So these are the CMOs we're talking about.
Yeah.
Give me a sense. I mean, you have that background. Not a lot of people come from business consulting and then become a CMO. Their path was very different.
Yeah.
So when you look around you at the moment, what is the state of the CMO?
Well, it is different in different organizations, but so let's just say I'm going to give you an average answer, and there's segments within that average. The average answer is not good. The average answer is that the CMO is in a weak position in many organizations, and it's not for good reasons. I think the CMOs are really capable of driving a lot of growth and bringing in new creativity and innovation. But, let me just back up for a second. Think about most organizations. If you think, most organizations go through 3 stages of growth. Number one, there's an unmet need in the marketplace, and they create a product or service to satisfy that need. That's actually a very kind of CMO-ish sort of job. It's also a very entrepreneurial sort of job. And entrepreneurs and CMOs they really blend together. At the best, they're kind of the same person, right? The CMO is a business person, and an entrepreneur is a CMO. The second stage is, hey, I have these customer relationships. What more can I sell to them? And so what you're going to get in that stage is a lot of product innovation. So you're starting to build a bigger organization, but at its core is, how can I do product innovation and service innovation to make money off these relationships? And so you still have this idea of creativity coming through as a core cultural function. Yeah. The third stage and the last stage until you reinvent yourself is really about operational efficiency. And that's a stage that most large companies are in. And so what happens in this stage, and there's a lot of value in this, I'm not criticizing this stage. There's a tremendous amount of value, as many of us have experienced. But what happens in this stage at most large companies? The language is analytic. The language is financial. The focus is on incrementality and squeezing out profits. And so when a CMO shows up and says, I've got a great new idea, really a creative idea, it's just completely at odds with the conversations that are happening, and yet it's still very valuable. So my only point is, you have got to find a way to create openness to that conversation that you're bringing prior to just showing up and saying it. And the way you do that is, right, and it's like what I was saying earlier, you've got to create the receptivity to what you can bring. And so I think the way you do that is first speaking their language, creating a relationship, demonstrating you care about those things too. They are important. They're just as important. And then when you do that, you open up the idea that you can bring a whole new level of growth, which, by the way, if you don't do that, then stage 3 leads to either, a reinvention or something that's kind of, I'd call efficiently going out of business.
Marketers have not kept pace with the environment that is developing around us. So, for example, when you look at technology and data, when they have been evolving rapidly, marketers are more the creative folks or have come up from the creative side of the house. They never bother to take charge of data or control, so much so that the technology folks overtook. And today they are dictating how marketing is done, which is amazing, right? If you look at entire programmatic, ask how many marketers, if they put on their hands on their hearts, understand programmatic. How much do they understand various technologies that are out there? Do they understand AI? Do they understand blockchains? Somebody else is running the agenda for us, and we are meekly trying to catch up now, on one hand. On the other hand, there is also a situation where there is such an intense democratization of marketing that companies, even large ones, are under tremendous pressure to grow. And when that growth is not happening, they look to the marketing guys and say, hey, we are giving you hundreds of millions of dollars. What are we getting in return? Where is the business? And as marketers, again, a lot of people have not learned the commercial aspects of the business. They are comfortable in their zone of marketing and creativity. And when the answers, therefore, they give to CFOs or CEOs is, well, my brand awareness has gone up, my brand predisposition has gone up, my net promoter score has gone up, you've already lost them. They think that you're hiding behind jargon, avoiding their question and deflecting the answer. So with the result of which, you lose your credibility as a CMO, and you lose the credibility for your entire function. So in many cases, they have been demoted to a level below the CEO. They're not even sitting at the CEO table. Right. So that brings us back to what should the role of a CMO be? To me, the role of a CMO, from a delivery point of view, is number one, you have to really build and nurture a brand for the long term. Number two, you have to drive the business and be a force multiplier for your business. Number three, you have to be the single biggest competitive advantage for your company, whether it is from insights all the way to retaining consumers and renewing and deepening relationships. It's across the board. I would put these as 3 pillars of marketing. And in this day and age, there have to be amazing leaders who not only build their teams, evangelize for marketing within the company to get marketing the right stature, they should also make a true difference in the society because they are uniquely capable of doing it. They have access to resources which no other functional or business people can claim. They have the creativity. They can use both parts of their brain, the right brain and the left brain. And they have got the network. They have got the marketing power. If they deploy these, they can make a humongous difference to the society and do social good. So I would say today, a marketer is a full-fledged business manager, a general manager, who is also a deep specialist in marketing, who is socially conscious, making a difference, and giving back. This is what I would say the role of a CMO today is.
Great marketers are the ones that have the platform, have the ideas, understand what consumers are saying about their brand, understanding the competitive landscape, and understanding where our brand can travel. And, I can't imagine a better time than right now to do that, and admittedly, in a time where a CMO is in the chair for 44, 45 months on average, you got to move quickly. I think in most cases, you think of yourself as a caretaker for this chapter of the history of the company or the brand. What I would like to think is that the marketers that I know that are doing it well are thinking about, how do I plant seeds today such that we'll be resilient and thriving down the road? And it's not unlike what's happening right now, Mark, with COVID. Here in the US, as you know, Wall Street will likely give many CEOs a hall pass. Exactly. Whether your business is down 40% or 60%.
Who notices the difference?
All are tragic, and the reality is going to happen. You know what they're caring about is, what's your plan to come out? Exactly. What are you going to look like? How are you going to modify what you're doing today? And it's my hope, and I know in many cases, that powerful, courageous CMOs are at the side of the CEO saying, here's what we can do, here's how we win. And we're already beginning to see some of that happen right now, which is exciting. And if you haven't prepared your brand to be human, authentic, transparent, and for Pete's sake, to stand for something, why do you need to exist? And I love that marketers are doing a really honest self-assessment with their CEOs to say, why do we deserve to live here? What's going to be unique about us? And how are we going to deliver this message? And how are we going to show up? And it's changing everything. I mean, for my world, it's creating madness in some cases, but I'm really proud of many of our client companies that are stepping up and quite frankly doing the right things, but it's going to cause massive, massive ripple effects. And this is the new day that we're in right now for sure.
I think it's probably the greatest time in history to be a marketer. But I think that you have to get a bit out of your lane, because I think marketing has gotten so broad. And to me, I don't even really like the word marketing. To me, it's building a lifelong relationship with every stakeholder. And that is your job, right? It's not, and that is socially, traditionally, right? And that includes internal, the culture, that's communication, that's marketing, that's internal marketing. So I think with this whole stakeholder approach, that if CMOs stay too narrow in the old-fashioned way, but if they decide to broaden and to think of all stakeholders and their job of building this incredible relationship with each one of those, I think that, and I personally believe that the future CEOs will be the world's greatest CMOs.
Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it equipped and energized you to drive humanized growth with us. If you want to see more of these conversations, please visit our website or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks.